So good to be here. I've only been here during the week and like passing through and kind of watched the construction of your new building come together. And I'm just excited to be here on a Sunday and be able to share some about Ecuador with you during this class period. And if we have a sound booth, audio visual technician expert now, and we're going to be able to roll here in just a minute. I'll need a clicker though. I bet you have one of those back there. That'll help out a lot. Anyway, I'm Kent Markham and grew up in the same congregation that Carla Good grew up in. Her dad was one of the elders there and actually started hauling me and some other young men around, getting us to preach at little bitty congregations out in the countryside. And that was always a special time, a special congregation. I was telling Carla we had a funeral for a 92-year-old sister in Christ that we grew up, both of us. She was there forever, so times are changing and passing, and the older generation, I hate to admit, is me now. At least I'm close, and that's kind of scary. But anyway, thank you for having me here. Your preacher is lost in India somewhere, is that right?
No, Ecuador. I'm not
Ecuador. I'm from Ecuador. Ghana. Oh, in Ghana. Okay, well, I'd like to hear his report sometime. We're going to tell you about Ecuador as much as we can when I get something up on the screen. And I've got a short video and a PowerPoint. The video is the medical mission that you guys helped with and had a couple come to, and so we'll look at that and then look at the PowerPoint as well. Do you have a flash drive or anything on there? He put it on your computer, but I have the flash drive too. Just in case you can't find it. Well, we are getting ready to do another medical mission in Ecuador in January. You guys helped out with our medical mission in June. We went to the Cayapas River where we have a lot of rural church planting going on, and that was just a really great. Paul, I'm pulling a senior moment here. Carolyn. Is Carolyn here? There you are. Well, there you are. You manned the man and woman the distribution of our handout of hygiene products and did a great job and really enjoyed having y'all down there. But anyway, so we were having a little bit of logistic problem in getting back to Ecuador. We found that there was some abnormal violence going on in Ecuador as of last month, and it had to do with some drug trafficking control problems, and it kind of has shut down some of the normal things that can go on in the on the coastline, especially up in the northwest corner where we work a lot at Kumani, which is on the screen now, right? Yep, there we go. And so put that together with an abduction that took place about a month ago of a young woman in the area where we work. We just decided we better change our medical mission situation to the mountains. And so we're going to the mountains to work among the Quechua brethren. And Paul and Carla have been there years ago, 100 or so, back probably 20 years ago, 20 years-ish. And so we're going to go work among the Quechua Indians this January. They're a wonderful group, a lot of good brethren that have done some wonderful work in their areas, in their rural villages. and that'll keep us out of the area that's in question right now. Now, and to add on, we just got an influenza report from Ecuador, and they've reinstated the mandate to wear masks. So Paul's going to enjoy doing that, wearing a mask for a week. Anytime you're inside, you by law have to have a mask on. So anyway, it's one thing after another. We're going to have a good time anyway. Well, let's talk about Ecuador. Do you see that video there? Let's play the video and go ahead and just mention what happened in May. Carolyn and Paul might see themselves. I'm not sure what all's on it. I'll talk a little bit. So we go about 3 hours upriver from a city called Bourbon, and then get to Cumani. And that's where we put up. We can host about 50 North Americans. Pretty comfortable. We feed well and try to take good care of our visitors.
Tell them again, oh, tell them again. I think I'll tell them over again.
When we do a baptism. But it's an evangelistic center where we reach out all the time, every day, every week, every month, with evangelists that are out of the School of Bible from Quito. This is some of our new cabins we put together. I'm going to use that microphone. How many of us are hard of hearing? Paul? We lose it? That's my wife in the background there. She put together a pretty good kitchen and is trained well, and we really do a good job of hosting our groups and keeping them healthy while they're there. The Cayapas River is a river and puts together tributaries where thousands of people live in villages, just scattered all over the place in the jungle. That's one place where we reached out and have a congregation that meets. There's about 5 congregations that meet every Sunday. It's a shot of our clinic and some of our living quarters. This has been this is our 12th year to be on this river, so all that's come together in the last 12 years. Chachi Indians and Afro-Ecuadorians populate along the river. Upriver, mostly Chachis, and downriver, mostly the Negro population. And so we reach out to all of them and have congregations among each of those groups. They pretty much live separate in their villages in terms of it's either a Chachi village or an Afro village. We always need docs, nurses, baby holders, ear cleaners, optometrists, dentists, translators. If you know anybody like that, put me in touch with them. This guy lives right up the road from you in Morrilton. He has a clinic there. Yeah? No, Judd, he's a great guy. He's the most redneck guy we invite. All the blondes and redheads are mine. They're grandchildren. They're my best translators now. Still got 6 of them living in Ecuador. So we give away a lot of pharmaceuticals. Of course we do, as is the tradition of Churches of Christ. We never charge for anything. We want folks to understand we're there to serve them, and we do it in the name of the Lord. Do a lot of coating of teeth. Started to say formaldehyde. That's not the right, I'm sorry. The river's a beautiful river. It is at its lowest point right now. I couldn't believe the other day getting a picture, but sometimes it's surging. This is a Afro village downriver. It's probably the largest one we go to. It's kind of like a county seat There's a little church meeting there on Sunday. So when our evangelists go out, they gotta cover 5 to 6 meetings every Sunday. It's a little challenging. They start early and do morning and then some afternoon meetings upriver. There's a granddaughter. There's our lead doc. He's yawning. Must have been tired. Built a new fuel shed during this medical mission week. A couple of guys that didn't want to, they just preferred to do some construction. It's a door opener. We don't cure all the problems in a physical way on the river. Whatever's going on, we can help with at the time, and yet it opens doors into the villages, lets people know that we care, that we do want to reach out to them as we can. Did you guys go on that waterfall trip? I'm glad you survived. This was the concluding night of our medical mission. We invited our neighbors to come and do a cultural African dance for us. It really shows their roots are from Africa. They probably landed in Ecuador in the 1500s when the slave trade was going on, and there was a ship that had problems off the coast of Ecuador, and all of the passengers evidently escaped and into the Ecuador jungle, and that started this population where we're serving now. And it kind of became known among all of the slave folks that there was a place, if they could get away, that they could run to. And so it grew, and there's a tremendous population of Afro-Ecuadorians, both there and now throughout the country. So anyway, thank you for helping that. Thank you to Carolyn and Paul for coming on that. Let's look at our PowerPoint, and I'll try to speak as quickly as I can and tell you what it is that you guys help out with. Is up the top one forward? I think nope. Maybe the bottom one's forward, or maybe I need to turn it on. Any thoughts? Well, there's 3 buttons. I stay out of casinos because if there were 2 doors to walk through, I would walk through the wrong one.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
If its batteries are dead.
I went to my wife's car the other day, got in, tried to start it, battery's dead, sure enough. So I put off working on it, and the next day got out the battery charger, hooked it up, and I thought, sure doesn't show that the battery's bad, but it's got to be down. So I left it charging there, went on my way. Came back that night, still deader than a hammer. Finally got in, had my glasses on this time, got in the car, and
So that one should go forward. Bottom one will go back.
the top one goes forward.
The middle, the big button.
The middle one goes forward. Great, thank you. Got in the car with my glasses on this time, and it said, wrong key. We have 2 Dodge Caravans. It's hard getting older. Okay, so here we are. Is this a... You don't have a laser, okay. Well, you see the star up in the corner. That's where Kumani is located, and that's where that system of rivers is. And they go all over the place. I mean, the Cayapas River feeds It's the main river that goes up, and then it just keeps breaking off, and you have tributaries that go all over the place. We haven't begun to touch the hem of the garment of all that we could do on that system of rivers. It appears that no one lives there in comparison with all the other dots where you have large cities of 300, 500,000, a million, or whatever, But up in that area, you have smaller villages. Sometimes it's just a handful of people. Sometimes it's just doesn't even qualify as a village. It's just a group of houses that some families or a family with the mom, dad, and the grandparents. Everybody lives together, a compound kind of deal. So there's a lot of evangelism to do, and there's so much that we would like to get to. And so everything that we can do to open a door, to let those folks know that we care about them and want to share the gospel with them is what we want to do. You have to take a little time getting there. You land in Quito, which is at 9,000 feet elevation, and that's the capital of Ecuador. And then on Saturday morning, usually, we ride a bus down through some roads like this. Sometimes you have landslides, rock slides, and it takes about 6 hours to get there. So by the time you fly all day and then do a 6-hour bus trip to get to the river and then 3 hours upriver, you're a little bit tired by the time you do get to where we're going to work. But it's worth the trip. This shows you a little bit of the tributaries. One is pulled out, and the other is a little closer. The Kumani in black letters, you can't really see it all that well, but that's where we're located. Up the rivers, upriver is mostly the Chachi Indian population, and downriver from us is mostly the Afro-Ecuadorian population. So we work in both directions and have congregations among both groups. And in one place, right in the middle, you have a congregation that's a mixed congregation, which ideally that's what we want to see happen, right? And let those folks see that we can all be one in Christ Jesus. There's kind of a little picture, Paul, if you wondered why the sun was setting or coming up in a different direction and you think you're all mixed up, that's the reason, is because you're not just going on a straight West Texas road. That's kind of like Arkansas, actually, isn't it? That looks like an Arkansas road. I've driven down some of them. I've straightened out some of those corners when I've been late to get to places. I better not go into that. So anyway, we've got a lot of challenges. It is challenging to work among people who have pre-Incan genetics and have been isolated in this remote area of Ecuador. It's not the regular work that we did for 30 years in the mountains among the mestizo people, which is just a mixed genetic group, and with Catholic roots and et cetera. Actually, it's a very fertile soil up in the mountain. It's a little tougher to get into these people's lives. And you think, well, why are they like they are? And I'm just going to, you don't have to read all this, but I'll try to tell you a little bit of what I'm saying, is that until recently, until I'm going to say the decade past, they really almost thought about throwing rocks at a person like me or somebody else that would get off a boat and have the audacity to come into their yard. We would think, okay, well, this is a village, but they live in communal situations where most of them are related. They all have the same last name. Their houses are kind of in a circle. Nobody really owns anything. It's just they're given a right to live there. And so they kind of, I'm going to tell you, it'd be like somebody walking into your yard, if you live in town, or even out in the country, somebody that just comes off the road and walks in your yard and just kind of starts walking by your windows of your kitchen. How would you feel about that? Well, that's kind of how they felt about North Americans or anybody else from the outside coming into their villages. That we would think, well, they ought to welcome us. We have gifts and all. Well, not so much. They don't really like folks looking in their windows. So anyway, we need to get along. I just wanted to give you some of the the idea of the challenge that we're up against. And one of them is the transportation. You get there by canoe, all the work's done in canoes, not regular canoes. They're 45 to even 50 feet long. They'll seat 2 North Americans. We've even learned to make them a little wider for the healthier North Americans that come to visit us, so that we can sit 2 people side by side in those canoes. And so 45 feet long, that's how we get everything upriver and everybody downriver, upriver. That's how they get to their locations. We do have some smaller canoes that they go in, but everything's, motorized, etc. If anybody has one of these, I bet you guys do have it here. These motors where the propeller kind of floats back, where you go bass fishing in the lakes where you got a lot of timber and stuff. Anybody have one of those? I need one in Ecuador. Sometimes our rivers get low, and we've been up more propellers than I want to tell you about. It's a terrible thing. So we are trying to get 1 or 2 of those little motors, 25 horsepower, whatever, that we can put on the back of those canoes, and not that'll allow us to get to more Chachi villages, especially that are upriver. So that's a challenge. Most religious groups have just kind of come and went. The Catholicism has been there a long time, but they're usually not manned, as this here, to say there's not like a priest that's there all the time. They're just little buildings, and so we have found a good receptivity, and people have said, we kind of like y'all because you came here to stay. We've located ourselves. We're there. We have a permanence that speaks well of what we want to do among them. And another thing that's interesting is that they said, we like this idea of just restoring New Testament Christianity like it was in the first century. That just makes sense. And I'm thinking, whatever happened to that message here? It does make sense. And we still have a great message, and that's what it's all about. Beautiful place to go. You'll fall in love with these people when you see them. They just live such simple lives, and I almost come to tears every time I go up the river thinking about these folks and how they have been there without the gospel so many decades and decades and decades. Well, we've done a lot since we bought this thing in 2009. These are just some comparison pictures. You can look at what it was and what we've been able to make it to now with God's help and a whole lot of sweat. The place we bought was an ecotourism hotel, is what it was, and it went bankrupt, and so we were able to get in, and we've totally replaced all of the jungle type construction, thatch roofs, bamboo floors, etc., with more permanent kind of structures that aren't going to be bug eaten, termite eaten up immediately, and it's easier to keep the bugs out of the rooms, bugs, snakes, rats, mice, and what have you. So it's improved a lot. We have a multi-purpose chow or mess hall that can feed a lot of folks, great cooking facilities, and we want to increase the number of groups we get up that river to do construction, to work in the villages, to do evangelism, both North American groups and Ecuadorian church groups that want to go up and help us out. So, that's the purpose. You've never understood termites till you go to a jungle. They have a great purpose there to take everything back to a jungle state. When I replaced the first roof with thatch covering, the guy guaranteed, handshake guaranteed, that it would be good for 5 to 7 years. Pretty soon I began to see holes in the roof, and I said, this is just last year we replaced this roof. He looked up and he said, well, that's not very bad yet. He has a great future in roofing, I think. So we even have a shower house now. We don't have to go down to the river and bathe with the natives or cold water. We have even some warm water. And men and women's side, we have a pressure tank system. Everything has greatly, greatly improved. God's blessed us. The days of carrying things up the hill even has not totally gone by the wayside, but partially. We have you can see the little rail system there. Some guys from Dewey, Oklahoma came down and built us a rail system to get stuff up the hill. About 100 steps was my last count, and my knee was counting them more than my mind was, I think. Well, these are the facilities. This isn't what it's all about, but we do want you to know when you do plan on coming that we'll take good care of you, and it's a beautiful place to stay and a safe place. We put together a couple cabins recently, last 2 years, that added to our capacity, and they were donated by some families that wanted to do it in memory of special people. They have a beautiful view. I'm trying to get past my video of that. There we go. If I can. There we go. We have 6 guys that come in and out of the river. They are graduates of the Quito School of Biblical Studies. They leave their families for 2 weeks and come out here and work, and then go back and be with their families in their hometown church in the mountains usually for a week. So they're 2 weeks in, 1 week out. 6 of them rotate, so we'll have 2 to 4 of them there at all times, kind of like oil field work. We have the Afro lady in the picture. She's our, you might say she's the mama of the group, keeps everybody in line and keeps them fed and things in order and cleaned. And so there's some church pictures from the nicest building we have to just some meeting with some of the Chachis. You go into a Chachi housing. A Chachi house is, number one, the roof is about that tall at its max. And so you got to watch, they're smaller people. You got to watch where you walk and watch your head in all the entrances. And it's all open. They rarely have any rooms. There'll just be an open thatch roof on the sides. It's open. And everybody just kind of lives in one large area. All the cooking, all the sleeping. People hang around in hammocks. Kind of a vacational feel to it, We like to get the folks together when we can, and so some church gatherings that we've had. It's exciting. It's exciting for them to see how many have come to Christ on the river, and to mix with the two cultures, and they're very distinct cultures. There's some of our meetings. Here's the guys. There's the evangelists that are working there now. I have additional to the 6 men that work there as evangelists. The guy in the white pants, if I can see him right, the one in the white pants with the red or maroon kind of T-shirt or shirt on, he's an administrator for me, Alberto Waman, and he's worked for me or with me a lot of years in Quito, and now I've asked him to work on the river. So he makes a lot of trips in and out, and has brought a lot of coordination and better functionality to the group. So we're really thankful for him. This is his family. He's 1 week in, 1 week out, basically. He goes out there a week and stays and comes back. So that lets him lap over with all the other guys. Darwin probably has been there 7 years now. Ishmael about 4. Gregorio on the left, he's been with us since the beginning. He's a Quechua Indian and does real good, mixes in. He's learned some of the Chapala language, which is great. And so he's now 11 years on staff, or one of the evangelists. The guy on the right is also a Quechua Indian from the mountains, Julio. He's one of our younger or newer guys, and they'll both be with us. Paul, on this medical mission, will go on to the mountains. They'll be our Quechua experts, which is their home stomping grounds. And then some of the newer guys, Robinson and Carlos. Carlos is actually Venezuelan. He's a Afro-Venezuelan, but has lived in Ecuador a long time, and so long that's a picture way back when I was younger, and they got married in our yard, him and his wife, and so now they have grown children. Makes me feel a little bit dated. There's two other staff, full-time staff guys. One is Carmen, that I mentioned, and the other is Gabriel. He's kind of our construction canoe motor guy that keeps everything moving. I told him I've always liked this picture of him with this 40 horsepower motor on his shoulders. That someday I was going to be able to do that and carry it up 100 steps on my shoulders. I asked him one time, why don't we ever get 70 or bigger horsepower motors on the river? We could go faster. And he said, we can't carry them. 40's as big as we want to carry. So we have these smart aleck North American young guys that come down, or older, and they want to look like him. So they'll take their shirt off and put this motor on their shoulder just for the picture, long enough, to get a picture of them as if they actually carried it up the steps. Gabriel's a great guy. Everything's done by hand. We don't do anything by hand here anymore. We don't have a machine to do it. We don't do it. Well, if you're going to dig a cistern, you're going to dig a sewer hole, you're going to do it by hand. Pick, shovel, bar, and you're going to get it out of there, and everything's going to be done by hand. There's no machinery there. So we have dug, I don't know how many, and that was the greatest challenge to me, was how to build this compound, and what do you do with the sewage water when you have 50 people? You're going to need a lot of way to different areas. The land is just saturated with water. We get more rain than Arkansas gets. I don't know what's the rainfall here. Does anybody know? How much? 50 inches a year. About 50 inches? Okay. Wow, we get almost 30 something in southwest Oklahoma. They get 12 feet a year here. So you can imagine, there's a leach line does you basically zero good. It's hard. So we have a complex sewage system, and we dug a bunch of holes for filtering our water. First catch, second filter, and then finally into the river. There's just not a lot of options. Anyway, you dig a lot of holes. And North Americans, you remember the story of the unjust steward, right? In the scriptures, when he's caught and knows he's going to be without a job, he says, I'm too old to dig and too proud to beg. Well, that's kind of where North Americans fall when it comes to working and digging with a shovel and pick in the jungle. We're a little bit too old to dig usually. Children's classes, the churches are full of kids. Lots of kids everywhere. They come out of the woodwork. I would just say, and so Carolyn and Paul's seen this, if you have a lot of folks standing in line, there's going to be a lot of young women there with large families. And they may be 26, 25 years old and have 4 to 5, 6 children with them. They start when they're somewhere around 13 to 14 years of age in the Chachi culture. And so you have these large families. They're basically through having children by the time they're 30 years old, I would say, normally. And so you have lots of kids. That's just my point. And so we're reaching out as much as we can to the different groups, the children, and then also the moms, the teenage groups, The men are the toughest. They're the least seeking of the cultures. That's just natural, I think, in almost any culture. The women and the children are easier to reach. But I've already seen a decade go by since we've been there. And I'm thinking, the 10-year-olds that were there when we began are now in the adult world and with children by their sides. We need to reach out to children as much as we can, because they are going to be the young adults and the folks that are going to be able to be reached more with the gospel and be active and faithful in our churches there along the river. So we're spending some good time. Women, when Charlotte goes out there, my wife, she'll have a day or two that we open up in the afternoons where we just have women's gatherings. And they really, really love to get together and sing and study God's Word. A lot of things have been done. Pole barn church buildings upriver, and we're going to continue that. This is a way upriver. This is our son Joshua teaching them some kids songs. It's kind of cute watching this little girl trying to follow his actions of go along with the songs. Listening to them sing in Chapala is always that's Spanish though. But anyway, they sing in Chapala some. I thought I had one of Chapala. And we're seeing some guys like Segundo. I think he's going to preach here in just a minute. Him and his son are good preachers in the Chapala language, or the Chachi language, Chapala. Let's see if he... The thing about preaching there, I went to a black congregation in Lubbock, Texas for a year when I was at LCU. And it was down by the cotton gins. Oh, we had a real terrible time with flies. And so you have to learn to preach and swat flies at the same time. Here you have to fight mosquitoes and stinging black flies while you preach. You see him doing that. I don't know if this will play. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see. No, it didn't. There's a little boy singing in Chapala. Telembi is an Afro village, and there's a little church formed there. I think we're poised to try to help them out with a pole barn church building of some kind, get them out from underneath their house. They're meeting underneath their house where they got about a clearance of about 6 feet, and they meet there. It's real clean and nice and cool. So we're excited about the folks coming along that are natives on the river. We build some swing sets for kids. Like to do that. Try to do anything that gets them out of the mud playing soccer. They've never done anything else other than that. We've remodeled some schools. Try to help out with some food distribution. You guys helped out with that, and I appreciate that. We last year, 2021, we gave away about $10,000 worth of bulk foods, rice, beans, what do you call them, pasta, dental, macaroni kind of stuff, sugar, flour, all that kind of basic stuff. And they really, really appreciate it. In fact, I would say they like that more than a medical mission. Something that's going to go on their table, they see it as an immediate help to them that they appreciate. So we would get this stuff to our compound, and they would come and pick it up. And that's nice to see them carrying 100-pound bags down the stairs instead of me, which I wasn't there for much of it. There's some pictures of the food giveaway coming and going. Oil, yeah, cooking oil. There's the group, that's 2020. That's this time, right? Yep. Yep, that's our shirt. I have to memorize the shirts. So anyway, we had a great group and really appreciate the participation from here. We've had a lot of good groups come through. Little kids will win your heart any place, but especially there on that river. And I always ask myself, why was I born and so privileged here in the United States? Lots of folks have come to Christ, and many more.
Can you bring it to a close? James is having a seizure.
It's closed.